And now we get to do the whole intro again about how we're here for the very next installment of the Permission to Do You in Your Marketing webinar series. It's so good to see everybody. All right, we have a wonderful panel for you guys today. So we're going to get kicked off as usual by having an intro to our panelists. And a reminder to everybody that as you watch, if you're watching live, please feel free to, if you're on Zoom, you can share your comments, your questions in the chat. If you are watching us live on Facebook, you can share your comments and questions in the Facebook chat, and I will bring them to our panelists as well. This is a conversation for all of us, so please feel free to participate. So let's get started with some intros. For those of you who don't know me, I am Tracy Borison. I am the host of the Permission to Do You in Your Marketing webinar series, a series that is about bringing more of you into your marketing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And very specifically, this episode is about going back to basics. So although we can get really specific, which we have in the last couple of episodes about copy and about visual design, really at the end of the day, it's about being yourself. And so that's what we're going to talk about today and how we can get back to the basic of being ourselves in our marketing. So I have a wonderful panel of guests who's going to talk about that with me. So you guys don't just have to listen to me talk because that's boring. I'm going to get each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Let us know who you are, what you do, and why you care so much about people being themselves in their marketing. So let's start just however Zoom placed people on my screen today with Ian. Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. Well, I'm Ian. I'm from Scotland. You might be able to tell from the accent. I am a social media marketing coach / consultant, which kind of encompasses a lot of business development for me as well. And I'm interested in people being themselves. I love that Oscar Wilde quote that everybody else has already taken first and foremost. But secondly, we want to be honest. And honesty is one of the most important principles for me, not just in business, but in my own private life as well. And it's something I try to live as much as I can. And I want my clients, and I like to work with people who want to have that as part of the marketing as well and the business development.
Well, if you guys have ever seen any of my previous conversations with Ian, then you will know that I love all of that. And this is what we're talking about today. And this is not a new concept, right? Like, and I'm sure there were hundreds of people who were talking about it even before Oscar Wilde was talking about it. Also, why we're talking about getting back to basics, you guys. This is not, we're not going to make this complicated. It's not supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to be easy. Theoretically, the easiest person to be is ourselves. And unfortunately, society and other things other people have said over the years sometimes take us away from that. And so we're going to get back to that today. Awesome. Thank you, Ian. Let's go to Danny.
All right. Well, good morning from Ohio today. Thank you for having me here, Tracy. It's an honor to be here and to meet everybody here as well. So yes, my name is Danny Kimball. I just recently launched a marketing consulting firm called Azeli Marketing. But I also stepped down from a corporate marketing background. And I would say the one thing that really stood out to me in my corporate marketing experience is this. And I'm fascinated by the intersection between brand and culture in the corporate setting. And so how do we transition that into the personal brand setting? And I think as digital marketing, as video marketing, social media marketing, all of this is really evolving and growing. The more personal that we can be and the more humane we can be. We're not hiding behind print ads anymore. We're not hiding behind headlines and things of that sort. It is truly just us marketing ourselves and building relationships with people. And we see that more in the traditional realm of networking and going to events and meeting people and getting to know people and building relationships. And how do we transition that more into the digital space? And so also from a personal branding standpoint, corporate branding standpoint, putting the two together, I think just the power of digital marketing allows us to be more intentional about being who we are.
I love that. And it's actually funny. It's throwing me back. So I don't know if you guys watched my my Facebook group blowout in May. But this was also, Ian was on there doing a session, and one of the things we were talking about was intentionality. And it was so interesting because I had I think there were 20 some guests over the month of May, and almost every single person was talking about intentionality. And it's interesting to me because we're intentional in a lot of parts of our business. We're intentional about a lot of parts of our lives. But when it comes to that intention of being ourselves, I think sometimes people forget about it. It's not top of mind because, again, maybe we should just know how to be that. And by just showing up and doing tasks, we're being ourselves. But I think I would challenge everybody to look at some point in your past where you were just showing up, right? Like you weren't really showing up to be yourself, to honor your personal brand, to own your personal brand, however you want to say it. You were just showing up. You were just doing things. I even think about it when I'm at home, right? Like I'm making my meal plan, right? And I got to make the meal plan, and then I got to do the dishes, and then I got to do the laundry, and you get so caught up in doing tasks that you forget about that intentionality. So I love that you brought it back to that, Danny, that we could talk about intentionality all day, and maybe we will. We'll see. We'll see what Dr. Viv says. Dr. Viv, please give us an introduction to your lovely self. Oh, you are on mute.
Always nice when you talk about something. But hello everyone, and Tracy, thanks for having me there. So I am a life research strategist, a development teacher, and what I do is help people rebuild their sense of self, rebuild their sense of identity. So I was specifically with that sense of self, identity, and confidence, especially as the public that is stolen, something from them and making people happy. And I'm interested in this topic why, because I understand what's pressure. I understand what it means to deal with the fear of failure, to deal with the fear of danger, and then substance and story. I am a recovery professional, I'm a chemical engineer by background. This is where I'm a chemical engineer by background. This is where my PhD comes from, where my doctorate comes. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me better?
That's better.
Oh, good. Oh, I've been too gentle. Right, okay.
Too gentle for the morning and for the North Americans. We need some gusto.
Yeah, right. So I was saying that I'm a licensed strategist, helping business leaders and career professionals rebuild their sense of identity and confidence and get over the things that are stopping them from showing. And I know what that feels like. I'm interested in this because I'm a recovery perfectionist, and I know what a lot of high achievers are having to deal with, the things that are stopping them from showing up. And I've been there myself, having been through depression in the past, having had to take a back step and work at some point because of my health, and having to then come back in and be afraid to show up and be afraid to be yourself. So understand what it means to be in that place, and understand what it means to then be able to show up outside of it.
And this is one of the central reason why the series is called Permission to Do You, because there are so many of those things in our past that have convinced us otherwise, right? That we don't have the permission to be ourselves. And some of those things are self-imposed. Some of them may have been imposed by your culture or your society or your parents or wherever else external things come from. But this is really the central theme of this series, is that when we can break down those reasons why we're not showing up as ourselves. And I'll tell you guys this, every single person has a different reason why they're not showing up as themselves. And that's for our friends like Dr. Viv to work on, to help you guys identify why those things are happening for you. And once you can see the power that you have in those beliefs about yourself, this concept of being able to give yourself permission, it's nice. We're going to all leave here today, and the four of us panelists will have given you guys some permission. But it's not our job to give you guys permission. It's your job to give yourself permission. And so that is some of the things we're going to talk around today, again, specifically because we're looking at our back to basics for today, that we are going to talk about some of the ways, some of the things that have worked for us, some of the things that we've seen work for our clients that can help you guys get that permission, get in that space where you can give yourself that permission to be yourself in your marketing. So maybe let's talk about just some of these things. So Dr. Vivian, and I'm going to start again with you just because you kicked off the conversation. What are some of these things that you have seen maybe personally for yourself or with your clients that have got people stuck, that have got people convinced that they have to be someone else instead of be themselves?
That's a fantastic question. There's a lot, right? Social media, I look at it as social media is amazing, but it's also passion. Because what is happening is a lot of people, we're not just judging ourselves by ourselves, there's more to judge ourselves by, right? So we get on, I remember once, speaking with a client, and she's okay because she gets on social media. So by the time you go on social media, it's like, oh, that person is good, looking good. Maybe mine is not as good as that and stuff like that. So there's all the things for comparison, right? And for comparison, there is also the likely society as a whole expectation, right? There is also the fear of being. What if I do that? Will people see me as crazy, or do they will expect a bit more from you? Like I remember for me, example, okay, there's certain expectations people have of me because of some of the things that I do and because of my background and all of that, and then they see me popping around the place. And it's like having to say, you know what, I don't care if people think that I should be all prepared or be whatever, just show up, because that's the freedom that I then get to do the things that I do. So there is all of that, titles sometimes, titles sometimes can keep people in the box. So I think those are some examples, comparison, the fear of judgment, the fear of being laughed out, fear of being laughed at, I would say, what was the other thing? The titles and being boxed, being boxed in. People saying, I've got to be a certain way, I've got to be short at a certain way, or I'm not good enough. So, people will say, okay, just stay away from her. So those are just some of the
Yeah, and I think I saw a lot of us nodding during that. Sure, all of those things are things I know that I've experienced in my past in different scenarios. And Danny, I'd love to ask you, because I know you and I are both very active on LinkedIn, and I have seen this specifically on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is the professional networking site. And I think it's breaking down those boundaries little by little, but I think that there's still this overarching, I've got to show up differently on LinkedIn than I show up on Facebook or vice versa. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question and great point. I do think that the social media platforms, you have a little bit of a different audience, or like when I show up on Facebook, I'm looking to connect more so with my family and with my cousins and extended cousins and things. But when I show up in LinkedIn, I'm looking for that professional network a little bit more. And so I tend to lean into, I've noticed the more vulnerable I've gotten on LinkedIn, the greater relationships that I'm building. Okay, so for example, I'm a mother of three, four next week, and I initially was just posting solely, related to work or related to events that were coming up or connecting it to the business that I was working for, right? And as soon as I started taking that conversation more to focus more on being a working mother and being a parent or being a female in the workplace and things like that, I started to build greater relationships offline with people like you, Tracy. Like, you reached out, and there's been so many others that I've just been able to connect and build deeper relationships with just by solely like telling my story and being more vulnerable and more open in that. And so like you said, breaking down the boundaries of, yes, it's a professional network, but we're human beings and we're all people and we all have lives outside of work. And yes, there can still be that angle. I post a lot of marketing stuff on there as well. And I try and educate people on marketing because I deeply am passionate and I care about helping people with that. But it's also just a mix of like me being exactly who I am in my personal life as well too. So that's where I'm at with LinkedIn right now.
Yeah. Well, and I'll share with you guys the thing that originally, so Danny and I are both in marketing, right? So we ran in the same circles, same LinkedIn circles, not the same local circles because we're not very close together. But Danny did a post, and I don't think it was about dancing, but it used a reference to dancing. And I am also a dancer. And I was like, ooh, somebody who's in marketing and is a dancer, we should be friends. And then I'm like, oh, and she's a mom and we have all these things in common. And I think what people forget in this business sense is that people build those connections based on personal things, right? So like, yeah, we ran in the same circle because we both are in the marketing industry. That's nice. But the reason why there was something more to be had in terms of a relationship was because we're both dancers. And like our dance experience hasn't been the same. We don't do the same kind of dance. And that was totally irrelevant. It was just about like dance. Oh, we have something in common. And this is what happens with building connections, with getting clients, right? Let's bring it back to marketing. We market to get clients, right? And I like to say that marketing is just sharing what you do. It just helps keep it simpler, but it's also about sharing who you are, because if somebody needs help, I use really ridiculous examples. I've been using the shoe shine example forever. So if you need a shoe shine and you know that this shoe shine guy he likes, I'm just going to use myself as an example. He drinks coffee and he likes, I'm going to say writing code, which like, I also know Ian likes to write code in his free time. But like, there's all these things that this person does, and they're just not really things that I do. And then there's this person over here shining shoes who loves to dance and loves to drink tea and loves to vacation in the mountains, right? Like, oh, I'm going to choose this shoe shine person who drinks tea and likes the mountains, because like we might have something more to talk about than just work. And this is, even if people aren't subconsciously making those or aren't consciously making those choices, those things are playing into why they like you, right? There's a reason why I like you. Oh yeah, we're both dancers. That's why I like you. And most of the time has very little to do with your work, your business, and how good you are at providing those services. So Ian, I'd love to get your thoughts on this conversation as well, about what stops people from being themselves based on what you've experienced and what you've seen, because you do have you have more of this focus in social media. And people have a lot of those limitations on social media.
It's a great comparison platform, back to what Dr. Viv said, isn't it? Everyone's comparing themselves to everyone else all the time. And ultimately, we spend our lives doing this before social media. It just amplifies the problem with social media. And, to the point you were just making there, people buy from people like them. And there's a bit of a distinction here that I feel is coming to sales and marketing. People buy from people to an extent. People buy from people like them is the real phrase that we need to keep remembering. And the word liking there can be a bit problematic. And I think this is actually, for social media, it's what stops people putting things out. They're concerned with being liked. And I see this as probably easier to see in sales conversations than marketing, but to me, it's the same bleed, the same issue that causes. You don't ask the questions you should be asking when you're in front of a prospect because you're scared of losing them. You don't say the things that you're feeling. And when we're talking about saying those things, we're not being nasty about the way we say them. We're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to be too blunt about the way we say them. It has to be congruent with who we are. So we soften them, and we can soften them to the point that we can almost say anything we want to people in a sales call. And a lot of the work I am doing actually just now is more sales-based. It's sitting with people who've lost some pretty big deals. We're talking corporates here, so they're 6-7-figure deals. And they sit and go, we wasted 3 months in a sales conversation. And there's bits of marketing going on in there as well, obviously. And we don't really know what happened. Oh, well, it's just a numbers game. And then you sit down with them and you say, tell me about what happened in your head through that conversation. So in the first 15 minutes, kind of got this feeling they'd already chosen someone. I'm like, amazing. Did we talk about that with them? No, we left it and we spent 3 months hoping that wasn't the case, because they were so scared to say something that they either would make the person not like them or they wouldn't want to hear. And to me, that's not really having an adult conversation. That's not being honest with each other. So we can ask those questions. We can stop trying to be liked, and we can say things to people like, you know, just pause a second. I'm getting the feeling that you may have already selected a supplier and you've kind of got somebody you want to go with in mind. Am I wrong about that? And if they say yes, you're wrong, then you can start having a conversation as why that feeling came up and what's going on in their head, and we get the issues out in the open with each other and we have an adult conversation, which actually increases trust and rapport because you're paying attention to the person. Or they say, no, you're bang on the money, we've chosen someone already, I just need a quote from you because I'm looking to save 5 or 10% on my current supplier. Great. In that case, you want to save 5 to 10%. How much are you going to save? I'll sell you the proposal for 10% of what you're going to save, and I'll make some money off the back of doing this transaction with you. Stop trying to be liked, but do appreciate that people buy from people like them.
Well, and I think this is actually a really interesting conversation, because if we're looking at it from people buy from people like them, but we're not being ourselves, then who we're being is someone else. And this is like, I always see this as in the biggest problems in relationships, because like you're trying to be someone else and then someone likes you for being someone else. And now you've committed to being someone that you're not. And that's just not sustainable, right? Like in the long run, you can't pretend to be someone else for forever. And I had this, one of the ladies, so I run a community called Your Business Peeps, and one of the ladies in there shared a comment about there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like you. So if you're pretending to be someone else, there's going to be people who don't like that person either. And so if there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like you, then you might as well just be yourself, because it's easier to be yourself. It's more authentic to be yourself. And there's always going to be people who don't like you. And so I'd love to hear any of you guys. So if you want to, anybody who wants to take that and run with it, it's a weird concept to me. If we know that there's always going to be someone who doesn't like us, why do we still tend to try and attract certain people or attract target clients? And I have to be that way. I have to be this person to attract those people. And there's going to be people who don't like me for that person I'm being. You want to run with it, Ian?
Oh, I always want to. I mean, you're bang on the money. It's what I find interesting is we kind of get this naturally in our own lives, right? Day to day, we were at high school. We were all at high school. I was at high school in the UK. In Scotland, probably a little bit different from America, watching some of your movies. But it's regardless of which group of people you were at high school, the most popular people, there were people that didn't like them precisely because of who they were. We get this in real life. We actually find this out quite early, right? From the age of about 3, we're developing these social skills and that understanding. But then when we take it into sales and marketing, I think broadly, this is just a problem generally. The minute you put the word sales and marketing in front of a problem, suddenly people almost abandon their sense of ability to problem solve on their own because it's something that's new to them, when actually the concepts that they've had in their life, we're really good at this as human beings. We've been doing our entire lives and socializing. We really deeply understand a lot of this stuff. We just don't always transition that understanding into the online world, the social media marketing world, for example.
Oh, perfect. I love this, because one of the things that I have been investing in lately is helping people to see. So I get similar things, right? People are like, oh, I don't know my personal brand. I don't know how to be myself. And I had this really interesting conversation with a lady the other day about how, and I thought of this immediately because I see Danny's drinking from a mug. I am drinking from my R2D2 mug. And my R2D2 mug says something about my personal brand, right? I picked this cup because actually my husband picked this cup before we were married, and it's still my favorite because he knew that much about my personal brand to get me a Star Wars cup. People use their personal brand to choose things like their mugs, like their glasses, like the clothes that they wear, right? And we have practice. You have practice using your personal brand. Like you said, you have practice using these kind of social skills we grew up with them, right? Like we started using them. My son is 3, right? Like he's using them already. We have lots of practice, and people forget that. It's almost like you guys know, as soon as like you could buy a cake, but as soon as you're buying a wedding cake, then there's like something different about it. And you're like, well, not really. It's still just a cake. And also, why does it cost so much more? Because it's a wedding cake. It should just be a cake. I know Ian just got married. Celebration, everybody, this summer. So. But this is the thing. We let these little tiny things distract us from the things we already know. So Dr. Viv, I would love to get your concept on this, because you're in the business of helping people like reset themselves, and how much of this reset is kind of tied to the definitions that we've created for ourselves. You're on mute. I don't want to miss any part of this, so let's get you off mute.
Oh, that's a good one. How much, if I got the question right, how much or what reset has to do with how we define ourselves? Did I get that? Correct. So I guess, we bring this back. I remember working with one of my clients, and funny enough, I spoke at an event, and she reached out. And in her case, part of the challenge was to struggling with a child was struggling with, but in actual fact, she realized that it was because she was struggling internally, that it was reflected on the child, right? And when we went back to it, a lot of what was happening because of her roots and how she had defined herself and the insecurity that she was dealing with. And a lot of times, the long and short of it is, we have defined ourselves, okay, by whatever means we define ourselves, right? However, we choose to identify either my work or where we come from or where we live or our culture. We have been trained with certain ways and ways. So which means when, as we grow up, we challenge some of them. That if they're not challenged, or even if they're not challenged, we find ourselves in certain situations, because of how we define ourselves, it becomes a struggle for us when we are met with certain situations. And that is, for a lot of us, the challenge, that if we don't deal with it, I do apologize, I don't know if you can hear the little one crying. They were all meant to give this space, but I do apologize, it happened. Hey, baby, can you go reach for me? Say hi, but you can't be quiet. Okay, say hi, okay. Okay. Okay, could you?
Can I just say that this is what real life looks like, and part of giving yourself permission to do you includes kids crying in the background.
So yeah, things happen. Okay.
I'm sure that's happened to Danny once or twice.
I actually thought it was mine for a second.
You know what's funny is I'm sure I was like, is that my kid crying? Like, I'll just wait to see if he comes in the room.
Thank them. So it's that thing of being able to say, hold on. Okay, I think we're almost in the clear. Can you hear me? Okay. Good. So it's that thing of being able to say, hold on, these are the beliefs I have come with. These are the insecurities I have come with. These are the fears I have come with. But are they really valid? And it's that ability to pause and reset. And reset means that identifying that, hold on, this thought, this fear, this belief that I have come with from young or from wherever, someone said it to me, or maybe, I just grew up with it because something happened and it's become part of me. That, hold on, I need to first of all identify that this is a problem. This is not really value. When you then identify, you can then unlearn that thing, right? So when you then unlearn, then say, okay, now I need to relearn what is right. And relearning what is right means being able to say, hold on, I identified that that fear was not valid. Now I'm unlearning that that fear is really, really not valid. And this is why it happened. And yeah, maybe that's why it happened. It happened because someone said it. But even if you said it, it doesn't mean it's right. But now I'm relearning the fact that, hold on, even if they said it, I am good enough. And this is why I am good enough. And this is why those values are not good enough. Sorry, those fears were never valid. And this is rather what is valid. The fact that I'm good enough because, hey, I've got the skill, or I'm good enough because, hey, I'm just good enough. I'm just me, I give myself a permission to believe that I am good enough. It is not perfect, but that's okay. And I think that is the fact that a lot of us hold on to perfect standards. And that idea of what we think is perfect, when really there are imperfections in everywhere and there is beauty in imperfection. And it's that ability to free yourself up to say, you know what, I'm okay with being imperfect. That then enables us to settle, to reset and settle. And Tracy, if I can give an example, one thing for me last year, for example, when we all went digital, right? And there was also some live last year. I remember I wanted to do more live. Now, for a lot of us, the quote, black ladies, there's this belief that, we've always got to be made up, we've got to come out looking perfect, hair flick on, everything. And so many times I wanted to come online, but I wasn't. Why? Because I'm a comfort dresser. It's more work for me to dress up. Right? And that was holding me back from showing up. So every week I wanted to do it and I wasn't. And then one day it just hit me that, hold on, what is the worst that can happen if I turn up without my makeup? And that was what me. That being able to break that and say, you know what, I'm coming up, and guess what? I was coming up. People were turning up. Even 1 week that I missed, I was getting messages that said, Vivian, where are you? I was bringing value. It was not about the makeup. It was not about the looking perfect. It was about the value. But it started with me, first of all, identifying that this is not really bad. And saying, and then freeing myself up, unlearning, relearning that it was okay to show up. Hopefully I answered the question.
Oh yeah, well, you answered the question and more. Because I recently got my hair cut, which is why my hair is not up all the time anymore. But I used to always tell people, like, if you are not interested in listening to what I have to say because my hair is up in a ponytail and I'm wearing glasses, then you shouldn't listen to me because that has absolutely nothing to do with the value of what I can contribute. So if you think that, then you're not my people and we shouldn't hang out and you shouldn't be my client, because I'm not like yesterday I had a coaching call and I was wearing like a sweatshirt and sweatpants, because who says I can't coach when I'm wearing sweatpants, right? Like, that's ridiculous. And there's just like so many of these things that are beliefs that we have that we've never questioned, right? Like, and Danny, I'd love to get your comments on this too, because I know you have a corporate background, and then have like going from that, and there's like certain dress codes and everything, and especially in marketing, because we're kind of the face of brands a lot of times. And then this transition to like, oh, well, hey, I can still do all of these things equally good from my house, although, like, albeit screaming kids in the background, sometimes a distraction, but what are you gonna do?
Right. No, yeah, I heard, I think Dr. Viv was spot on in saying, like, appearance is, and then the fear of being judged by our appearance gets in the way of us showing up who we truly are. And so, I like to be ready every day though. Like, I feel like if I'm like getting ready, then I'm more productive at my desk. But then there's those days where, like you said, like showing up in a hoodie because I just need to be comfortable. It's raining outside and I want to drink hot chocolate instead of coffee. And like, you want to have like that atmosphere that gives you the best productivity. But going into like more of around the liking, and Ian kind of hit on this a little bit, is I think sometimes we're measuring the actual like likes that people are clicking on the post as like that's them liking us. And so we could have a post that goes viral and that we have maybe, 15,000 likes on. And so we think that's the type of content that our audience wants, and we conform a little bit to that side if that post truly didn't feel as authentic to who we are, versus one that may get 12 likes. And then we get overwhelmed and we feel like our audience doesn't like who we are because of a post that we put out. But I'll just share a story. I had two posts go viral last year on LinkedIn, and neither of them, and they were around culture and things that I believe in, but neither of them brought deep relationship. Okay. So while they have 15,000 likes and they're still kind of tracking and trending, it's like neither of them have brought me a close relationship with somebody. The ones that have the 13, 15, 25 likes are the people that tend to just continue to engage with the content that I'm putting out into the world. And those create the relationships, those create the messages. And so I would say don't get overwhelmed by the like count, and let that like count make you feel like you shouldn't be posting more, or you shouldn't be putting your message out into the world more, because eventually that audience just slowly builds and it becomes the right audience versus a random viral post that creates the whole world to react to randomly. So that was my point there.
I think that is a great point, because one of the additional dimensions that social media has created is this immediate ability to see those likes and comments and engagements, right? And so many people still in the marketing arena are focusing on the number of connections, the number of likes, the number of followers, the number. And I talk about this all the time because I work with service providers who need 30 clients a year, maybe 50, right? Like there's 7.3 million people, 730 million people on LinkedIn. Like, you don't need 15,000 people to like your post. You need, it is I think that's an important reminder, Danny. It's those ones that are the recurring, those are the ones that give you the deep relationships. And it's also been interesting for me because I've had I have not had any post go viral yet. I'm not trying to have posts go viral, but every once in a while I get comments from people who are like 3+ connections. So they saw it I have no idea how they saw it, to be honest with you. I don't investigate the algorithm that deeply. But then there'll be these comments from people who are not in my network, and they clearly don't know me based on their comment, right? And I was like, oh, this is so interesting, because like the people who know me, who know what I'm trying to say, and like I'm not about people agreeing with me all the time, but it's about like they get my intention, and therefore we can have a useful conversation. Whereas these people, they don't know me, they don't follow me, they haven't met me, they don't know my intention, and therefore they assume my intention is different. And it was just really interesting for me because, quite honestly, it was I counted it as a win in terms of my personal brand, because I saw this. I did a post a while back asking a question. I like legitimately was asking the question, when you say you're busy, what does that mean to you? Because I don't use that. And so I was interested to find out like why people are using this. And some people said, I'm overwhelmed. Some people said, how are you is a lazy question and you should ask better questions. And I was like, oh, and now I've been asking better questions, useful feedback. But this one person came back and said, you don't know what you're talking about. You should just hush. And I was like, well, you clearly don't know anything about me, because I'm not about people just hushing when they have a question. I'm about people sharing their voice and being authentic. So, but that was my response, is you clearly don't know me. Right. And I was like, oh, it's not that there's something wrong with me, or I'm trying to be an expert in something I'm not, right? Like, I'm not. You clearly don't know me. And that is fine, because you clearly don't, right? You're a 3+ connection. And things like that can really help you own your personal brand, to give yourself that permission. Because again, no matter how good your intentions, someone else may not know what they are. And if they don't know you, then they may not know that, and they make a bad assumption.
Silver
Ian,
lining.
did you have something? Yep.
The fact that he comments on it helps you spread your message around more people who may resonate with you. So it's never a bad thing. It's never wasted effort from that perspective.
No. And my post the next day was fueled by that interaction. So more content as well, double win. I just want to hop to the chat quickly because Laura's been sharing some really great stuff. Just in the conversation about being liked. She also mentioned this fear of being left behind. And she mentioned not being seen as successful. And this is something that I have been, it's been interesting to me lately because I also think that a lot of our success we measure against someone else's expectation of, or someone else's definition of what success is, and not our own definition. And I also just wanted to share that Laura says what Danny was saying is so true. We're about long-term relationships, and that takes momentum and not a one-off. So framing on that. But let's talk a little bit about success, specifically in the marketing arena, because a lot of times success in marketing is measured right now on likes, on engagements, on things like that. So I'd love to hear, I'm going to open it up to the floor. So whoever opens their mic first gets to go first. Well, Ian's mic is open. So Ian
gets to go likes and comments first.
Oh, yes.
This is one of my favorites. So Facebook made their data set available to Nielsen, the research firm, right? So huge big data research firm. And they looked at the correlation between engagement, likes, and comments and actual purchasing power, people that were more likely to follow through on a purchase. And they actually found a slightly negative correlation. There's literally no correlation between likes and comments on your posts and buying behaviors off the back of a post. That's really interesting. Mm-hmm. And when you actually get into the Facebook ad arena, I've seen agencies look at likes and comments on posts as a way of judging whether an ad's good, which is a terrible metric because Facebook are not optimizing for that because of all the research they did with Nielsen. So they're looking only at the reach figure, and all of the other metrics on the platform are largely just a representation of the reach, because the reach is about resonance, and they're monitoring a whole lot of variables in the back end we don't get to see. And so when you're looking at ads, for example, we don't get that in an organic world in Facebook, which is a shame because it'd be so useful to us. We do get it on LinkedIn, which is really interesting because you should actually, rather than looking at likes and comments, look at your reach. And you will find sometimes you have posts that have pretty low comments and likes, but they have a huge reach. And that's because the algorithm's actually saying people are actually reading this. This is more relevant. So it's actually damaging from the sort of all the data sets available to Facebook, certainly, to say likes and comments are what you're shooting for. It's a bad aim.
Oh, well, heart, because I always say that anyway. And also it's just like, I think we forget our own, like coming back to what you were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, Ian, about how we have practice doing things, right? Like every single one of us, I'm sure, uses social media. And whether you use different channels, what have you, but you have there's a way you browse, right? Like you scroll and there's certain things you stop and read, and some days you stop and read more things, and some days you watch more videos, and some days this, and we hold each one of our posts like so accountable to capture everybody's attention every day. And you're just like, dude, there's not one person who captures my attention every day. So why would I think that I could do that for another person? It just is kind of crazy. And that's where I also see that, like, I can see how there's not really so much of that correlation, right? Because the other thing, and I always love to share this because, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this as well, but when it comes to my social media, when people reach out to me to actually get help, it's not because they've like commented on a bunch of my posts and liked a bunch of my posts. Like usually they're like, oh my gosh, I've been watching what you're doing and this is great and I need your help. And I'm like, wow, I never would have known that because they weren't interacting. But this is why, like, that's why that reach is relevant, right? Like people are seeing it and people are hearing what you have to say. And that's like, especially in the conversations like you are having, Dr. Viv, which is really like trying to get people to reset their life. Like, that's sometimes we're ready to receive that information and sometimes we're not, right? But us hiding and not saying what we want to say and what we believe doesn't give more people more access. It gives less people less access. And so when tying it back to the concept of permission to do you, when you show up and you talk about what you care about, you're giving maybe you're giving one person access to that belief today, but like, how amazing is that? How amazing is it that one more person gets the freedom to not be afraid to show up on social media? How amazing is it that one person listening to this conversation today could reset their definition of marketing and say like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so panicked about that post I did that got 5 likes, right? Like, this is the concept of the permission, and this is what we do by showing up and giving people access to that information. So let's take it back. Like, I want to bring it back to success as kind of our like wrap up for today, and what success can look like. So I would love all of you guys to answer this from your own perspective. What does successful marketing look like for Danny? I choose Danny because Danny's got her mic off.
I'm going first. Actually, Laura, thank you for commenting here, because I do love your where you say the fear of not being seen as successful. And I think that's where we all have to step back and define for ourselves, what does success look like? To me, success is not equal to money or to growth from a business perspective. In my opinion, success is like, how deep can I drive my purpose and feel and live a more fulfilled life for my family, for myself, and for the business world that I work with, right? So I was the question, Tracy, how do I define success in marketing?
Yes, for yourself. Yep.
For myself, yes. So if I continue to almost like push the noise out of that FOMO feeling of like fear of missing out or fear of not being deemed as successful by other people, and instead just own who I am and own my personal brand and come across with confidence in that. And like, the more that I can stray away from and push away from that noise and focus purely on just being who I am and how I can serve the world, the greater success that I bring to not only my family and my life, but I perform at a higher level for my clients because I truly am like passionate about the work that I do. Now, if I'm trying to be someone else because then I'll look like I'm more successful, I'm not performing at a high level. I'm faking it. It's not coming across authentic. It's not coming across real. And then we feel that in our homes, and my children feel that, and my husband feels that, right? So it's like, it's well-rounded and comprehensive in like how you define your success. And so I recommend the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and really getting deep into your purpose and understanding what is your purpose here in this world, and then narrowing in on your personal values. Like, what are the personal values that align to your purpose, and how does that then connect to your brand and your business? So that may be helpful.
Yeah, so good. Great book recommendation. Before I jump to Dr. Viv, I also want to remind everybody who's watching that if you guys have questions, last chance to write your questions down so we'll answer them. Okay, Dr. Viv, what does successful marketing look like to Dr. Viv?
That, that I was sitting thinking, how do I answer that? Being in the space of so many marketing professionals. So for me, obviously, I have been learning a lot of marketing to do with what I do. And one thing I've had to learn is the power of how do I say now? Marketing is not always the selling. Let me put it that way. So coming from, someone from a total different background. When you hear marketing, first of all, it's all about money exchange and all of that. But the more you do this, you begin to see that there's dimension about relationships and how all of that happens. So for me, in growing through what I've been doing, I see success in marketing as being able to be myself, giving value that's delivered. It may not, I love what Ian said as it relates to all the likes and the comments and blah, blah, blah. And we were put together because that was that knowing that knowledge, Ian gave me freedom some time ago to go and remove a whole bunch of followers. Like, I think I took up over 500 followers from my page. I had to break come away from the metrics and just say, I'm not about to get it to 10,000 without having the right people. But it's really being able to be yourself that adds value in an authentic way that really does transformation. When I get a message like I did a few minutes ago from someone where they said they had me speak somewhere, and knowing what I did gave them the things that I discussed more or less helped them recognize certain things that have come that they were not aware of. And that led to them taking certain steps. That is musical. That is mutual, you know. And so that for me is where I can add value to where everything.
Oh, love. And if you guys aren't paying attention, the whole point of this exercise is to see that everybody's definition of success is a little bit different. So Ian, what is Ian's definition of marketing success? And then there's also a question for Ian after.
There's a question, yeah, I saw from Laura. So yeah, reaches the views on LinkedIn. So on your dashboard, you can look into the post to see how many views you got. That's what you're looking for. And that's all about relevance. I could do a 10-minute rant on that, which would bore you to tears probably, but maybe we can put something on that up for you so I can explain more.
Yeah, Laura and Ian connect on LinkedIn. I'll do an intro.
Yeah, we'll do that. So I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, which, you know, is something. My definition of success in marketing is spending as little time as possible doing marketing activities and sales activities. Because actually, although I love it and I love persuading people, what's more important to me in life, and the reason I left my corporate job, is my family and spending time with my family. And so I do what I do and I help my clients do what they do, because for me, there are things that are far more valuable than marketing in and of themselves. So I'm all about minimizing the time and the effort as much as we can in order to get to a place where we're getting enough business in for ourselves that we can do what we actually want to do in life and be who we actually want to be.
Oh, so good. And I want to just point out, I'm going to share with you guys mine as well, but I want you guys to notice how different they are. It's because it's based on what's important to each of us. And it's not about there's no one standard of what success looks like in marketing. And I always tell one of the things, like I have a lot of years in corporate marketing. And there's so many people who, again, they'll do like one post or one marketing campaign and it doesn't work, right? Every single person who is a marketer has created a campaign that didn't work because marketing is mostly guessing. I'm going to guess. I think this is going to work. And therefore I try it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't work, we don't do it again. And when it does work, we do it again. It's just guess and test. And so there's no perfection. There's just not, it's not a field you can be perfect in. It's about guessing and testing. And so for me, we'll wrap up. Kind of applying for post. Oh yeah, Rosalind is also just sharing that it's like applying for jobs and writing cover letters as well, right? Like you don't know these people, you don't know what's gonna work for them. You know what works for you. You know what's true for you, and that is, I think it's actually a really great roll into like really how I see my success in marketing. Is I shared at the beginning. To me, marketing is about sharing. And if I'm going to share, I want to share in a way that feels authentic for me. And so all of my marketing activities feel like something Tracy would do. And if it doesn't feel like something Tracy would do, I don't do it. And it means that like, I don't really show up on Instagram. I did this morning because Dr. Viz is on Instagram and she shared a story. But like, I don't show up there because it doesn't feel like me. I don't have an email funnel because every time I tried to write one, it felt wrong. I don't pre-schedule my posts. Actually, like Danny and I were sharing about this on LinkedIn, because like I don't pre-schedule my posts because by the time it goes out, I feel like it's not authentic. And so I don't, right? Like and other people do different things and that's fine. But I don't do any marketing activity that doesn't feel like Tracy would do it. So that's how I judge my success in marketing. And how anyone else judges it, that's their problem. Oh, thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation, you guys. Thank you to all of our guests as well who contributed to the conversation. Laura, Rosalind, thank you. Anthea for being here. Thank you for Chris watching on Facebook. Thank you so much, obviously, to Ian and Danny and Dr. Viv for sharing your wonderful expertise with us. If you guys, so connect with people. Dr. Vivian is mostly on Instagram. Danny, I think you're mostly on LinkedIn. Ian, LinkedIn and Facebook, both kind of, you can find them there. If you guys know me and you want me to make it easier for you with an intro, just reach out to me and I am happy to do that. Thank you guys so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And what I want to remind everybody leaving this session today is that there is the possibility of you bringing more of yourself into your marketing. And what we want to leave you with today is the permission for you to do that. And if you need more people to talk to about that, please come and talk. Connect with us. We would love to talk to you, any of you, about it more. If anybody is watching the replay and you have a question for any one of the panelists, just tag that panelist wherever you're watching the replay, and they'll be able to come back and answer questions. I will be checking it as well, so I will forward any of those things to you guys if they come across. And one of the last things I want to remind you guys, and one of the things that I am attempting to do with this space, is creating a space for you guys to find that ability to give yourself the permission. If you haven't done it yet, you need some people, you need a space that is going to allow you to practice doing that. All of these things are skills that we practice. And in order to practice, just like I always use a basketball court as an example, if you're going to practice your free throws, you need a basketball court where you can practice your free throws. And in order to practice these skills, you also need spaces where you can practice that. So if you guys don't have a space where you currently are practicing being yourself and showing up authentically, please reach out and speak to me about the Your Business Peeps community. That is exactly what it has been created to do, is a playground for you to practice living in your personal brand in work scenarios. So please reach out and talk to me about that. We have our founders level pricing available until the end of August. So if that is something you guys are interested in, please reach out to me and we can talk about it. With that, thanks again to everybody who joined us today. And until next time, permission to do you.